it's time to take a look at our Indie of the Week. And this week, we're going a bit acid house. Acid. It's all gone a bit, I was going to say 70s, but technically 80s for acid house. Technically. Now, I think the best way to illustrate this is for me to show you it in the studio. So over to me.
Hello. It's exciting, me being in here as well as being out there at home. Strange, isn't it? I know, I'm very strange. However, I've got a whole table full of strange to show you. I've got a 6x4 from Acid House Terrain. This is their portable fantasy table. And as you can see, it fills a table, but it also fits inside this teeny tiny little box. So, fascinating stuff. The fantasy setup that we have here shows most of what you get in the box. We'll come back to a couple of things that we haven't shown here at the end. But the idea behind it is you can make a 6x4 or a 3x3 or a 4x4, whatever you want to do. And you've got a couple of different options within the set itself. So you can have your rural outside type with your fir trees and your delightful little cottages with a variety of blue slate and red clay tiles, which is always nice. You've got your castle walls, your fortifications, and also some buildings for the internals as well. So the towers, the wall sections are accompanied also by runed versions of same. So we've got 3 runed walls and a runed tower section here as well. And all of the stuff is very simple to build. It's generally 2 pieces. So you have a internal structure. I want to pop that out. You just have to fold across the lines, fold on the lines again, and pop one inside the other. And your pop-up building is ready for the tabletop. He said, not being able to fold that back into the corner correctly because I'm cack-handed and my glasses don't let me. There we go. Anyway, so you can see here we have some runed temples. We have things like my little stair setup that comes onto this elevated section. So you could just have that for executions, weddings and funerals. I do like the big runed temple section on it though. It's a really nice design. As you can see, everything is made from a satin finished card, which means it's both cleanable if you happen to spill things, but also dry wipeable if you want to draw things on with a overhead projector pen, like some of the kids do these days. It gives you a lot of height variations as well. You can see there are little wooden ladders that you can drop in or little wooden bridges as well that allow you to extend where you play from. So you don't have to start off on the ground floor. You can work your way up or you can run across the ladder on the top. Some of the other little features that came in this set, we'll start with this, which is possibly the smallest piece, but one of my favorites. It's a little tiny water fountain for kids to drink at. However, it also has, in a town monument style, what appears to be the Kickstarter backers up the 2 sides. So we have them there, and we have more of them there. And I think that's a beautiful feature for nothing at all, apropos of nothing. With our cottages, as you can see, they've a decent footprint on them, and most of them have got a roughly 25mm sort of grid on things like the flagstones. These, he said, can be popped off so you can play inside them. And again, the interiors are all detailed, so there are accesses to the basement. There's even a fireplace in the corner, all held on via the medium of folds, like a origami ninja. I'm not going to do that. I'll do this though. So There are a couple of other things, like I said, we haven't seen here. If I grab the barracks and take my little ladder away so people can't get up on the roof, there are actually several additional floor sections for various buildings, including the barracks. So if you want, you can actually go ahead and set up the buildings from the compound. Oh, I'm going to make a Hames of that one as well, I think. You get the idea. You can set up the buildings from inside our fortification there to also have floor levels that will allow you to play in them as well without having to hop in, hop out. Obviously, crease your cardboard a bit better. The last thing is this lovely internal board section for we're using it for our city streets. This also comes in the set, and that is half of it, because the other half is with me here. And as you can see, it's actually double-sided. So you can have it set up as a verdant outside. Again, that's satin finish, so nice level of detail on it. And then your grids are actually all indexed on there. So if you happen to be using this for RPGs, make my tongue blacken and fall out of my head, you've got your grid on there. Or if you just want to play in your city, then you've got that as well. And they come with little connectors. Now, there are a set way for these city grids to line up so that you actually get the internals to match. So, for example, that one would not be a good way to do it, where you have cobbles appearing in a house or a house appearing in the middle of a street. I'm not sure which. But there is enough of those to give you a 4x4. And this is like I say, the fantasy gaming set. However, this is the 4x4 version. There's another version which comes in with more of same. In fact, if I spin that, John, you might be able to see we've got this. However, if you want to fill a 6x4, they suggest this one. But as you can see, we've actually filled a 6x4 already with a very decent amount of terrain on there, be it forests, temples, ruins, or fortress walls. So it's a little glimpse into the world of pop-up terrain and, I suppose, origami scenery. Back over to me on the Weekender.
There we go. Thank you very much, me. So I do keep referring to it as pop-up terrain. Technically, it's not pop-up terrain. Technically, it's just quick build, I suppose.
Quick build. I like that.
Quick build. But the fantasy setup that you see there is one of the most recent. They have 2 other ranges. So we'll have a wee nosy through the other bits and pieces. But it shows just how quickly you can get a really effective looking table down.
Oh, I love this stuff. Yeah.
And the fact that it all condenses back into that box. Now, myself and Shay put the fantasy board together in 20 minutes. Maybe
less than that. 10, 15.
Yeah, there was a lot of us going, what part goes with this? Because it was the first time we'd done it. But then it can be collapsed back into the big box afterwards. And that was collapsed back in just under 10 minutes. So having a 6x4 that you can stick in a box and slide under your bed is great. And it looks really effective. But like I say, there is other stuff available. This is their upcoming Cyberpunk one.
Ooh.
We've been looking at a bit of Cyberpunk recently with the likes of Codeblade. And the nice thing about the Acid House terrain is it has the really nice texturing on it. So you're not just left going, I've got a really nice set of terrain that I've got to paint and then store. You can go, well, I've got a really nice set of terrain that I can now just slam down on the table and then move on with my life. And when I'm finished, put it all away again. And I think that the Cyberpunk, the evocative colors of everything, it's full on. It's what I expect to see with the sort of neon noir of a Cyberpunk backdrop, whether you're playing, in this case, there's some House Escher gangers from the proper version of Commander, or Hint or Codeblade or whatever else you want to play out there. Infinity. Yeah, well, very good for Infinity. But just having the ability to put down not just a quick range of terrain, but terrain that has got height, depth, the walkways and the like, so you can run between levels. It's not just a flat board that you're playing on, and has some really, gorgeous looking bits and pieces on it. There's the metro going down, deeper and down.
It creates some really nice illusions, which I think is good, because you get the sense of depth in the artwork there. So even though it's not interactive in that sense, I think there's enough presented there to make it feel like you're actually in something a lot more detailed than it actually is, if you know what I mean. I think it's really cool. So,
and the fact that the stuff is square means that you've got a lot of modularity when it comes to stacking bits and pieces here, there, and everywhere, whether it's a rune temple on top of a little elevated area, or smaller little cubes on top of bigger buildings so that you can get your sniper positions, or get ready to jump down on top of somebody's head like in Judge Dredd, which is always good. And I like the fact that they add the incidental pieces in, so you've got like your barricades and stuff, barriers. With the fantasy one, there's all those little tree sections that you can just kind of fold whatever way you want, just to start breaking up line of sight, which is always neat.
And anything that makes tabletop building of terrain easier, but also looking nice at the same time, I think is just a big plus. Like stuff like what we're seeing here from Acid House, and the stuff that like battle systems creating and all that kind of thing, I think it's just all good. But
depending on the game you play as well, obviously we looked at technically it was a 4x4 fantasy board we looked at, even though we filled a 6x4 with it. The only real thing that limited that was if you don't have a mat, it includes enough board sections to do a 4x4 in the box.
Oh, okay.
But they do other size boxes. So if you're constantly playing a game that only plays out on a 2x2 or 2x3 or whatever it is, there's smaller entry points. You don't have to pick up everything.
Right.
Although I do really like the whole aesthetic as a thing anyway. I really like the names on some of the buildings as well. There's one that says Scott Brown, and I can't work out if that's a Back to the Future reference.
How do you know it says Scott Brown if it's in Japanese or Chinese?
Oh, no, it said Scott Brown in English. That's how I knew. Because I don't read any of the Japanese languages.
Hiding a secret that he actually
no, none of those. But as you can see, these are currently up for pre-order. But there's a
very nice
for what's that, €60. You can get a 2x2.5 set, and whenever they sell them, it's the same form factors within them, but the amount you get, as they call it, volume. So a 4x4 is 100%, a 6x4 would be 150% of the bits and pieces within there. So you may find that you get less of some buildings and more of others, depending on whether you're going up or down. I want to find the Great Scott picture again, because it's like it's a big green, you can't miss it really. And obviously Doc Brown says Great Scott all the time.
Great Scott.
No, I'm not going to find it. I'm going to have to give it up as a bad job. It's going to annoy me though. It will annoy me.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible. So that's the Cyberpunk, but there's also Sci-Fi. Where's our Sci-Fi live? I reckon it's the first one. Oh no, damn! I went too far. I hit the past. But again, for Infinity, for 40K, Dead Zone, Firefight,
all sorts of different
whatever you want, really. You've got the whole kit and caboodle in here with a very sort of industrial.
Well, the Sci-Fi one and the Cyberpunk one, you could just mix and match in together.
Well, yeah, so you could go from your industrial heartland into your downtown neon city center. Look, people from a game I don't recognize. That's a shame.
It's very
Mechanicus.
It's very similar to sort of the Infinity Train that they were doing in their box sets.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
But
you get in the Code 1 boxes and things.
Yeah, but these have the added benefit of folding down, folding up very quickly, and having a nice rigid structure to them. And as you can see there, it's a hefty thing. I believe a long time ago, myself and Justin did a time-lapse video showing us setting up a board's worth of this.
Quite possibly.
I have recollection of it. I remember it. I remember me going, it'd be great if we set up a camera and did a time-lapse of us setting this up. Cue 20 minutes of us trying to work out how to assemble a box. Just going, it's only 2 parts. One part fits inside the other part. This isn't that difficult. Was for us.
You know what this might be useful for, and we'll probably talk about it later in the show. It might be useful for Mantic's new Halo game. Depending on how it plays, which we'll get into when we get there.
Yeah. But yeah, so sci-fi, fantasy, and cyberpunk. If you're not sitting with a ton of room, and not everybody has a huge house where they can store loads of stuff or a shed worth of room.
I don't have either of those things.
The fact that these give you really nice tables worth of terrain, but then go back down into a box about the size of a board game, sort of one of the big chunky board games these days.
To go back on a Kallax.
Yeah. It may be a bit deep for the Kallax.
I bet this stuff smells great too.
Oh yeah, it's got the lovely card smell.
Card and print mixed together.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I have to find one thing for...
That's the true acid.
Find one thing. Look, I just like to point out all of the fantasy miniatures are on proper 20mm square bases like God intended.
Glorious.
Just saying. And at one point, there's a white lion fighting a wraith and some skellies in a room, and he's going to get munched.
Oh, I like a castle.
The castle, which we had out there, was the... it comes in 2 flavors, regular and absolutely totaled by medium of exploded things. So...
I like the woods as well. I think the woods look great.
Yeah.
I think they're nice.
Do these guys have any dungeony looking stuff? Oh, let's see that you could take these rooms and build a dungeon out of that.
Yeah.
Look, he is so dead. He'll take out the 3 skeletons, but he does not have a magic weapon, so he can't hurt that.
Yeah.
That will just do him up like a kipper. I see death touching your future, mate. And your friends on the horses are galloping away. That's where that's happening. So yeah.
Run away.
Yeah, the range is really nice, and I like how they've incorporated the internal flooring so you can play inside the fantasy buildings, which is something really the sci-fi ones didn't. And I imagine they'll probably brought that across to the Cyberpunk as well, because that's a more recent addition.
Yeah.
Is it the Wofon people that do the 2D standee armies?
Yes.
Do they do any fantasy stuff?
Yes.
Then you could go totally 2-dimensional then.
Yes.
You could do. you two could be, well, technically they do have width.
You could be in Flatland.
It's not like Flatland. I was about to say that.
Flattish land.
Flattish land. Oh, we're all going to go all philosophers. Who was it? Abbott? Wasn't he the philosopher who postulated Flatland? Comment below. Win a prize.
If you know.
He was on acid, you know.
I imagine he wasn't. Right, that is Acid House terrain. Like I say, really nice if you're looking to fill a table very quickly and not have to worry about storing it forever in a day, because you can just slide it onto your bed, fill your boots. Right, I think it's time for some news.